We're going to fill in a few number lines with some frequent fractions, fractions that most people just know. That first number line is split into fourths. There are 4 segments to get from 0 to 1. So the first dash is at 1/4. And 1/4 is equivalent to, lots of you probably, hopefully already know, 0.25. And 0.25 is the same as 25%. Yeah, 1/4 is the same as 25%. Some people just know that relationship. Now the next dash is at 2/4, but if we didn't have those other notches there, hopefully you would have just noticed it's right halfway between 0 and 1. So the 1/2 is equivalent to 0.5, or 0.50 if you want to think of it that way. To think about the equivalent percent would be 50%. Half of something is the same as 50% of something. And then on the other side of it, we then have the 3/4, which is 0.75, 75%. So that's what we get for fourth. Now if we look down at the next number line, we have 3 segments to go from 0 to 1. So each segment is worth 1/3. Here's where people think they know the equivalencies, and they don't always. So 1/3 as a decimal, some people just say it's 0.3 or maybe 0.33, but in reality it's 0.3 repeated, 0.33333 forever and for always. And this bar notation we're going to have in our notes very soon. So 0.3 with a bar over the 3 means 0.33333 and forever and for always. As a percent, again, a lot of people think 33%, same as 1/3, not exactly. It would be 33 1/3%, or 33.3 repeated percent. And so similarly, 2/3 has the same sort of slight trickiness. 2/3 would be 0.6 repeated, double the amount. 1/3 would be 0.3 repeated, so 2/3 is twice as much, 0.6 repeated. As a percent, 66 2/3%, or 66.6 repeated percent. But sometimes there will be perhaps skill drills where it will purposefully be making sure that you don't assume 33% is the exact same as 1/3. 33% is a good estimation, or 1/3 is a good estimation of 33%, but they're not exactly the same. Now the last number line, if you count up how many segments there are between the 0 and the 1, there are 10 segments. So each of these is a 10th. But when I have 2/10, that simplifies to 1/5. So when we look at this last number line, we're going to be dealing with frequent fractions that people use a lot of tenths as well as fifths. And here we have 3/10, but this one, 4/10 is really the same as 2/5. You might see someone use 2/5. 5/10 we've already done above. That's 1/2. 6/10 is the same as 3/5. And we have 7/10. 8/10 is the same as 4/5. And the last one we have 9/10. So the tricky part here is if I see fifth, go, oh, how many tenths is that? You can usually figure it out pretty quickly. And therefore, if you have tenths, what we're going to see in doing these conversions is it's just like you would read off as decimals. So I have 9/10. 9/10 in word form would look like 0.9. And then every time I have a tenth of an object or a tenth of an amount, I have 10% of it. So here I have 10%, and then if I have 1/5, that's the same as 2/10, so that's the same as 20%. 3/10 would be 30%. 2/5 is the same as having 40%, 40 per 100. 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, and 90%. So these are fractions that you should be fairly comfortable with, and typically you don't have to show work to convert it unless the directions specifically say show how you manipulate the fractions. You should typically be able to switch between these formats for these particular fractions.